morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. Happy to have you here on the Wake Up America show. Thanks for joining us. Make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel today as you drop into the chat. Sorry I'm a little late this morning. We're having a little bit of technical issues. The Wake Up America show always has some kind of technical explosion every single morning. We're glad to have you here, though. Chris Morrill, John Rail is here with us already. Bad Mako, Pork Chop Times, and Caleb Vanderfelt's over on YouTube. Thanks for joining us here, as well as our friends over on Rumble, of course. Kermode Bear and European Tin Beater. Nice to see Nelson65 as well, just dropped in. Glad to have you here. We're going to have some great guests today. AC joining us as well. That looks like a new friend over on YouTube. Good morning, good morning. Glad to have you with us on the Wake Up America show. I've got some awesome topics for you today. We're going to start off at the top of the show with something a little bit different since it's a morning show. The morning habits of rich people. The miracle morning. I've got a list of things that mostly rich people do when they get up early in the morning, if you want to be rich like them. And I know you're early risers anyway, so maybe add a few of these things to your morning routine along with the Wake Up America show. And a delicious cup of Jeffersonian Java. I see John Rail and I are drinking the same brew this morning. Whereas a leftist described my coffee the other day, they said that they would never buy this, quote, hateful swill. So I'm actually thinking now that I might make a Donald Trump brand of coffee for the mornings, and we'll label it Hateful Swill. What do you guys think? Good idea? Would you buy and drink Hateful Swill? Well, the Jeffersonian Java, it's funny about the light roasts, is that the light roasts actually contain a little bit more caffeine than the others. Steffi and I have been doing all this research on coffee since we launched the brand, and we learned that we always thought the dark roasts were more caffeine. We thought darker roasts, more caffeine. Not actually the case. More caffeine in the lighter roasts, because they don't roast it for as long. Caffeine evaporates during the roasting process. So the darker the bean, the longer it's been roasted, right? You get that more of that kind of like burnt-ish flavor when you get the darker roast, which, you know, I kind of like. But I'm drinking the Jeffersonian Java today. That's the light roast from the Founding Flavors collection. And I'm feeling pretty jittery. It's good stuff. And if you're looking for a good way to wake up, get yourself some go-go juice from ap4libertyshop.com. Okay, well, we've got a lot of topics to hit today. Let's see what we got. What do we got for her, Johnny? After we talk about the morning habits of rich people, we're going to talk about, this is kind of a cautionary tale, I guess. I try not to freak people out too much or scare the crap out of you. I only really try and talk about things that I think are actual dangers or threats when I can actually verify it. And this morning, I was actually reading a story from the Wall Street Journal about how a lot of people's tap water contains what are called forever chemicals. This is from Wall Street Journal. It says lots of tap water contains forever chemicals. Take these steps to reduce your risk. Interesting stuff. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes. Just some helpful tips for you guys to maintain your health throughout your life, because, of course, we want to make sure that you are nice and healthy so that you can stick around and hang out with us and be friends forever. Forever and ever and ever. At 7:35, we're going to talk about a woman who was locked up in Dubai. A female trucker by the name of Tiara Allen was jailed in Dubai, currently sits in a prison in Dubai for screaming in public. That is a crime in Dubai, and I think you're going to find this story very interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about cultural norms and why the West is the best. I think this story for you is really it's going to hit you on multiple different levels. It's a fascinating tale. It's going on right now. I found this from Black Twitter, which I like to follow a lot of Black Twitter accounts, and they've kind of got their own community, not only in the United States, but just sort of, all over the place. We're going to talk about that, and it should be interesting. What happened to the thing? Okay, there we go. San Francisco. Did you see this? San Francisco has decided to lock up all their frozen foods. Not only are they shutting down stores in San Francisco because of the massive amounts of theft, but they now lock up the frozen pizzas, the ice cream, frozen lasagnas, any of the frozen dinner kind of stuff in San Francisco. You have to go to the front, get a cashier, open up the case, and that's how you get your frozen pizza. If you want to buy frozen pizza in San Francisco, you got to go through. Remember, they started doing this with the razors. They've been doing it with what else have they been locking up? Deodorants and things like that. The little bit, anything over $5, gets ripped off. But anyways, we'll talk about that. I've got some pictures of it. San Francisco is not doing well. This was awesome. So a Jason Aldean song is making liberals' heads explodes. Country music star Jason Aldean dropped a song in May, but I guess a memo just got dropped to the left that how there's that NPC meme where it shows the NPC from the side, and they're opening up the brain of the NPC and putting in taking out an old outraged chip and putting in a new outraged chip. Well, I think that the Jason Aldean outraged chip got dropped. So the new NPC software update has been dropped. And now the liberals are freaking out over this Jason Aldean song about try that in a small town. And unfortunately, I can't play the actual song for you because you get the copyright strikes. But we are laughing here so hard at this song. Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool? Well, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough? Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Good for you, Jason Aldean. We know how it be. We know how it be. Also, real quick update. I see Stephanie and Buddy Mansour are already chatting about it yesterday. We were having some problems with the shipping on AP for Liberty Shop for our new Tiny Patriot collection, which if you haven't heard, Stephanie made a whole brand new collection of baby and toddler clothes called Tiny Patriots, and it's like baby Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington, Commander in Cute. Right. So it's this really cute little patriotic collection for your children. And for some reason, it was charging like $25 per item for shipping. It was some crazy thing. So we actually fixed it. So now, if you were looking at getting some of those cute little collections, either for your own baby or for somebody else's toddler, then definitely check those out over at apforlibertyshop.com. Chris Morrill said Sheryl Crow slammed him the other day, disappointed in her a tiny bit. Yeah, I didn't see that. That's interesting. Yeah, so we'll talk about that Jason Aldean song and why it's driving liberals insane in about 30-40 minutes. Good morning to Tucker Punch joining us. He's waking up in Nashville. Yeehaw! Glad to have you here. Nelson65 says, on original stores from England, you had to be waited on by a clerk. You couldn't browse nor shoplift. We might be going back to that, especially in places like San Francisco, but love to hear your thoughts on that. You can send us text today at 573-319-1586. Again, the text line today, if you'd like to chat with me directly and have your text read on air, that text line is 573-319-1586. 1586. That's 573-319-1586. Okay, so at 8 o'clock today, the title segment, Jon Miltimore from the Foundation for Economic Education joins me. A whopping 44% of millennials that's my generation, want to make misgendering a crime. What the hell is wrong with you people? We're going to talk about that today with Jon Miltimore. This is a Newsweek poll on misgendering. 1,500 eligible voters were polled. They were asked whether referring to someone by the wrong gender pronouns, he, him, she, her, should be a criminal offense. 44% of 25 to 34-year-old respondents said yes, that should be a crime. Only 31% said it should not be a crime. It's ma'am, I tell you, it's ma'am. Okay, ma'am, just please don't hurt me and throw me in jail. Okay, I'll say ma'am, just don't throw me in jail, for God's sakes. What a bunch of weenies. We'll talk about that with Jon Miltimore at 8 o'clock. Should be a fascinating discussion. The tyranny of the majority. That's why we're not a democracy here in the United States. Can I get an amen? Down with democracy. At 8:35 this morning, we're going to talk to JD Tuccille. JD Tuccille. So the ATF just suffered a setback from a court case that said that the ATF can't just say anything that they want is a gun. Can I get an amen? So, for those of you who aren't up to date on your recent gun lore, there are these things in the marketplace, these new products called unfinished lowers, and they're fun. I've got one. It's a little project build if you want to make a little handgun. What it is, it's the plastic lower, and I can print things like these in my 3D printer. However, I got one just as a fun little project to play a little gun Lego, if you will. And you can essentially turn them into Glocks, but you still have to purchase all of the parts. You have to purchase the slide on the top, you have to purchase the trigger, you have to purchase everything but like the plastic molding on the very bottom. It comes with all the plastic molding, and then in order to, they call it an unfinished lower, in order for you to actually convert this piece of plastic into a gun, you need some tools, and you've got to snip out, you got to dig out a little well out of the plastic. You have to like snip it out, break it out like you would like those old airplane sets where you used to like break things out and stuff, and then you had to put it together. It's similar to that, except you actually have to like, get a Dremel and go in there and kind of, smooth it out, right? And you actually have to have some skills to be able to turn this piece of plastic into a usable firearm. And I mean, I would try a gun like that, but it's just my opinion. I wouldn't trust a gun like that with my life. I would rather, if I'm going to have a sidearm that I'm going to carry, it might be fun. It's fun to play with, right? It's fun to enjoy. But an unfinished lower is what they call an 80% lower. So you have to finish the last 20% of it before you can then convert it into firearm. It's a lot of work, right? Trying to turn those things into a Glock. I started a project, I didn't complete it, entirely, but the ATF wanted to classify them as firearms, which is kind of like it's silly, right? It's like this plastic case that my phone comes in. This is a 1%. We'll say this is a 1% lower. Okay. So if I take these plastic parts and I convert it into a firearm eventually from this piece of plastic, this is a 1%. This is an unfinished lower, if you will. Well, the ATF suffered a setback when a court struck down a ruling that a rule that the ATF had made saying that unfinished lowers were firearms. So we're going to talk about that with JD Tuccille. It's going to be fun, a little bit of nonsense and a little bit of funny at 8:30 a.m. today when JD Tuccille joins us to talk about this court case, and it should be fascinating. All right, morning habits of rich people. The first thing that rich people do when they get up in the morning, have you ever wondered how successful people seem to have more hours in the day? Well, the first thing they do is they get up and they get themselves a cup of Founding Flavors coffee. They join us on the Wake Up America show. Am I right? And then they follow these rules to unlock the secrets of wealth and prosperity, right? So this is all based on research, academic papers, studies, autobiographies, anecdotes, and things like these that we have compiled this list. And the number one habit of rich people, and this I think applies to all of you, of course, if you're watching me live right now, is what you guessed it. That's right, getting up early. And also making generous donations to the Wake Up America show, like Joe Spinella. Thank you, Joe. You guys have been really generous with the super chats lately. I don't know, am I doing a better job, or are you guys all getting rich out there? What's the secret? I guess it's because you're getting up early. You're following these tips. Joe says plastic is cute. Having a 4-axis CNC and abundant access to metal is better. Yeah, no kidding, right? I'm jealous. You get to make the expensive parts of the guns, right? All I can do is 3D print the plastic part. The second thing on the list here for that, the common habits, that morning habits that most rich people share, is physical exercise. Have you gotten up, done your exercises, right? Do your chairman mouse, right? Get your exercise. Maybe right now while you're listening to the show, it's a good time to stand up, stretch, get your blood flowing. I usually stomp around the studio in the mornings when I'm alone. I come in here and do a little 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 punch, right? Get that. Let's roll those shoulders, guys, because this is how we get rich, right? It's working already. Joe Spinella gave me $10, so I'm already on my way to wealth and prosperity. Good morning to John Turner and all you Liberty lovers. Glad to have you here, John. John is a very old friend and a good friend and a supporter. Thank you, John. The number 4 thing that you do, and I'm not joking, this is actually legit on the list. I didn't write this list, but I'm sharing it with you. Reading or consuming informative content. Yes. Maybe you could be consuming informative content as we speak right now. So yes, reading would be nice, but if you can't read because you got other stuff you got to do, you want to listen to AP in the background, well, there you go. That's right. Consuming informative content. That's something that rich people do in the mornings. So you have now completed that. How many things have you already got? 1, rising early. Boom. Hell yeah. Good for you. Physical exercise. Have you moved around a little bit? Right, reading or consuming informative content, boom, you've already got that. So you've already hit 3 out of this list of 16. But how about number 4 here, a meditation or mindfulness practice? So what we ought to do is take ourselves a nice deep breath. I do a little meditation tonight. Stephanie and I are going to do a little bit of karate, and we always take a 2-minute meditation before class and after class. And we close our eyes. And we breathe together. Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why we get a larger than average amount of libertarian women who watch this show is because of topics like these. It's not just like your typical libertarian show where it's like, we do, of course, have a majority of dudes who watch the Wake Up America show, but I think we do better with the ladies because we do things like this. I know they do appreciate the mindfulness. So take a deep breath and out. It's going to be a great day. We're going to have a wonderful day, and especially because we get to spend it all together. Meditation intro music instead of techno. Maybe not a bad idea. John Turner says he was an AP presidential campaign volunteer. 2016 was an eye-opening year. Yes, you were. That was a great year. Sarah Palacios loves working out in the mornings. You got to do it. Do them squats, Sarah. Hope that you have a wonderful day. It's nice to see you, lovely. The next thing on the list, if you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, make sure you click that like button as you settle in. The morning habits of rich people. We're talking about the miracle morning, things that rich people do in the morning. Get yourself a healthy breakfast. What I do is not only do I have my Founding Flavors coffee, but this is my routine. So when I wake up in the morning, do a little stretch, I let my dog out of the crate, scratch him, give him a nice scratch, go downstairs, and then I make my oatmeal. And Stephanie, she puts the oatmeal in a little tray for me. I take a little milk. I know I should use water, but milk tastes better. I don't care. It's only like 20 more calories. And so I start with a oatmeal, and then I have Stephanie has taken a little bag of fruit that she's put together, usually strawberries and blueberries. And then I take that fruit, and I nuke my oatmeal, toss in my fresh fruit, stir it up. I eat that every morning, just oatmeal and fruit and a little bit of coffee. But also one thing that I do that I've gotten better at, which is really helpful, is just start with a little glass of water. And I know for a lot of people, you're like, oh, I don't drink enough water. Well, if you're not drinking enough water, just maybe start the day with just like one of those like half glasses. I use like a whiskey glass and then just take a shot of it. It just lubricates everything, gets you going, helps your brain, honestly. So get yourself some water, maybe a little oatmeal. Oatmeal is a superfood. I don't know. I can't remember a list of things, other things that are superfoods. I know like spinach and stuff like that are considered superfood foods, but oatmeal is one of the best ways to start your day because I think it tastes good and it's a superfood and you can put fruit in it. And that's, one of these are habits of, healthy people or wealthy people start with in the morning. Goal setting or planning the day. God, you know what? I can't, I guess I can say this. I just can't say specifically names or anything like that. I think Stephanie's going to be like Austin, but I'll go. I guess I'll just go ahead and say it. I got a little part in a movie. I know. And it's gonna be and it's got actors in it that and it's and a couple of them are actors that I really admire and I look up to. And the producer of the film just like knows me from somehow, I can't remember. And I have a meeting with him later today, but I'm actually, I've got like a 30-second, I've got lines, like a little 30-second speaking role. You won't see my face on camera, but you just hear my voice. But yeah, I don't think I've been in Hollywood movies and I've been in like independent movies. But I think this is like my first like paid speaking part in a movie. So I'm kind of excited about that. So later today, I'm going to have a conversation with the producer and get that set up. I think you guys are going to really like it. So pretty exciting stuff. So I'm really happy about it. But AC says, don't forget, Burke has wellness gummies too. How could I forget? Of course, I will not forget that John Burke's Shell Shock CBD, which is a sponsor of this show, does have awesome gummies that you can get at shellshockcbd.com. Use that code AP4Liberty. That's another great way to start your day. Thank you for reminding me, AC. I appreciate that very much. We're glad to have you here from, I imagine you found me from John Burke. John Rail says, I drink a gallon of water daily. It's been a game changer in my weight loss. Better health journey. Drink a glass of water when I wake up. Very smart, as we all ought to do. Stay healthy, so it'll make you wealthy and wise. Number 9, time spent with family. So in the morning, my part of my routine is, I let my dog out of the crate. I scritch him, give him some scritches, give him a little kiss, try and give him like a positive mindset to start the day, so he's in a good mood, which he usually is. He's a little sprightly lad. Then I go downstairs, start my Founding Flavors coffee, go back upstairs, get ready. My beautiful wife, I mean, she looks like a princess because sometimes she looks like a lion, but like her beautiful mane of red hair is always just this gorgeous shine, and there's always a little bit of light that comes in the room that reflects off of her hair, and she's always smiling and happy and in a good mood, even though it's 4:30 in the morning when I get up. And she's there, and usually our 2 dogs have, because they don't sleep on our bed at night, but then they come up, they make their way up to the bed in the morning. And so Stephanie is it's a Stephanie sandwich, and she's just sitting there, and it's the Peterson family, right? The 3 boys and Stephanie, and she's just sitting there surrounded by men who love her, and they're just snuggling her, and she looks absolutely beautiful. And we have this little routine where I give them all kisses, where of course I start with Stephanie, and George is a very jealous dog, so he's like always trying to butt in, so I have to like push him away. All right, so I give Stephanie her love, and then I give Calvin, he's the oldest, his love, and he's usually like kind of conked out, but he like looks up and waits for his kiss. And then George is over there, and he's like freaking out. He's like, I need my attention. And so I have to like grab him and hold him so he doesn't bite my face, and then give him a nice kiss. So then, yes. So, Farmer Far is here. Are we live? Yes, we are. Good to have you here, Farmer Far. Thank you very much. And so that's kind of our family time in the morning. So this is a habit of wealthy people. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, glad to have you here. Make sure you click that like button. We're glad to have you here on the Wake Up America show with us. If this is your first time here and you're enjoying the content today, make sure you click subscribe. I think you're really going to enjoy the show. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. The news has been a little slow lately, at least in terms of big breaking news. So I'm just going off and talking about other things that I think are fun. We're glad to have all of our friends joining us. The Onion Dip is here with us. Nice to see you. Nelson65. And Gannon Zero, he says, we would not be here if homosexuality was a crime. Probably true, but I don't know what would happen, because the problem with that is, Gannon, is that if homosexuality was a crime, then there'd be a lot of consider this. It was a crime. Homosexuality was a crime in Britain, and who was the guy who was the brilliant, the genius that they castrated, and then he committed suicide because of like the government essentially pulled him into it. He was like, it was Alan Turing. Yeah, Alan Turing. So things like that. So that's the problem when you make homosexuality illegal. You kill many of your geniuses because they're not, chasing skirts all the time. They're actually, building nuclear weapons or cracking codes. Farmer Far 1955 says, love you, Austin. Love you too, Far. Nice to see you again. Steffi says, maybe we need to stream our morning routine. Well, the only problem with that, Stephanie, is that as you like to enjoy me walking around butt naked in the mornings, that is a frequent habit. 56 people watching now. I'm sure they would love to see a little bit of the actual news. How about that? I'm going to play a real quick clip for you. Just something that we can laugh at. We don't have to talk about it for 10 minutes. But this is a video of Justin Trudeau, or it was supposed to be a video of Justin Trudeau. It should be a video of Justin Trudeau. But since Justin Trudeau is not here, there we go. Chrome browser, Chrome audio. I've had a whole bunch of technical issues this morning. So take a look at this. Justin Trudeau speaking to a crowd. I thought this might put you guys in a good mood. Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister, heavily booed by the crowd as he walks on stage to give opening remarks at the North American Indigenous Games. Don't you love to see it. You love to see it. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Nice to have you here. Nelson65 here with us. Morning all, says Katie556. Glad to have you here. We appreciate all of our friends joining us here. If you're enjoying the content that you're watching, make sure you click that like button on the stream. We got 50 people watching us over on Rumble. That's awesome. We're almost getting to that point where we're starting to get like an average of over 100 people between all of the streams on YouTube and on Rumble and Facebook and the other places. So make sure you click that like button. All 53 of you watching us right now on Rumble, that would be, if we could get half of you to click like, we need 25 likes, then we will call it a day. No, just kidding. We'll keep rocking and rolling. We are going to get to that topic. Scott Beezer joining us right now. Good morning, Scott. Nice to see you. I hope you click that like button for us. I thought you'd enjoy the Justin Trudeau getting booed clip. We're talking about morning habits of wealthy people. At 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to get to the title segment of this piece where Jon Miltimore is going to join us to talk about 44% of millennials saying that misgendering should be a crime. Obvious redonkulous. What the hell's wrong with these kids? We'll talk about that at 8 o'clock this morning with Jon Miltimore. So if you want to hear that topic, make sure you come back then. Mary Kramer says, thanks for sharing that. Nice to hear Justin Trudeau getting booze. Isn't it nice? It is nice. All right, let's hear what's the next list item on the list here of morning habits of rich people. This is a personal hygiene routine, which I imagine you all have. Like nobody probably needs to lecture you on your morning hygiene, but that is a habit of rich people in the morning. Networking or communication with associates. I don't really have a whole lot of those, but I do get up early and drop a lot of emails. So that's another morning habit of rich people. Time spent with family, right? Already told you about my morning routine with the family. Number 10, reviewing financials or markets. I need to get back into that because that was something I was really good at. I won't get into too much of a tangent here, but I will say that lately I was doing day trading last year, but the market was a nightmare and I was getting killed. So this year I've been a little bit more cautious about day trading, and I've actually been using artificial intelligence for my day trading. And the few times that I've been using it and paying attention to the markets more, because I kind of been ignoring them and stuff like that, just trying to stay away from it, because I'm just hoping that Joe Biden loses next year so that we can actually have a strong economy. But I've been using artificial intelligence to help me, make good determinations about potential day trades. And I did one last week that worked out really well. Essentially, I just asked artificial intelligence to tell me some good stocks that had strong fundamentals, that had some volatility, right? That they travel. Because when you look at like Coca-Cola, for example, it's not really good to day trade on Coca-Cola because it only goes up a few cents or down a few cents. You want a strong company that moves $2 or $3 a day up or down. And what my strategy has been lately is to just wait for a day that the markets get wiped. And I need to set up some alerts for that so I can do it more often. But check the markets in the morning, and if things are crashing, once the markets open, right? It's trading, outside of regular hours is a little bit tricky and dangerous. But I asked AI, what are some good stocks that have strong, solid fundamentals that have volatility, right? They wobble up and down a couple of bucks a day. And so last week I executed a trade on Square, the company that does financial transactions, because it has, some volatility. That way you can actually make some money when you make a bet. So on margin, I think I borrowed like $6,000. And then turned around and sold it the next day and cleared like a $300 or $400 profit. So, I mean, imagine if you could make $300 or $400 a day on the stock market using AI, right? So a lot of people have been doing this right now. So it's not trading for you. It's not a magic bullet, but you have to understand some basics of it. But probably a good idea to check the financials and of the marketplace on a daily basis in the morning. I need to get better at that so I can actually be rich. There you go. That's how you would get rich, right? Avoiding digital distractions, not going to happen with me. Maybe that means I'll be poor. Continuous learning or skills development. Now, that is something that I have to do every day. I learn something new. I do something new. I try something new. As a matter of fact, if you look at our social weirdness scene today, you'll see that I actually set it up a little bit differently just to give you something a little bit different visually to look at, right? I'm always looking at a way to grow and learn and, add to my skill set. So, and that's an absolute requirement for someone like myself, but probably a good idea for you as well. That is a crowd pleaser for sure, watching Justin Trudeau get booed there at that conference. So, visualizations or affirmations. I'm not quite sure I really understand this, right? But visualizations or affirmations is on this list here. For those of you who might know it better, maybe you can help us out for it. Next is quiet time for thinking or idea generation. I do take a few minutes in the morning for idea generation. I don't know about you, but it's a good idea to, do outlines and things like that. And then 16 is gratitude practice. How about I do that right now and say, thank you very much for hanging out, watching the Wake Up America show in the morning. Not a lot of people get up early like that. Nice to see all of our friends here over on Rumble. 71 people watching us on Rumble now, 40 on YouTube, 70. If my math is correct, that is over 100 people watching us live right now. Glad to have you here. All right. Will Run Riot says, just invest in whatever the Pelosi's invest in, better than AI. They got that insider info. Very funny. Glad to have you here. It's exciting to have such a big audience as our regular, average has started to push up. Scott Beezer found that like button. Yes, you did, sir. Thank you. We're trying to hit 25. We got 71 people watching us on Rumble right now. If you're one of those Rumblers, please do us a favor and click that like button on the stream. We appreciate you very much. And we appreciate, of course, our viewers on YouTube as well. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Thank you for subscribing, Max Malecki 369 over on Rumble as well. I see those likes and subs on Rumble, and they are helping us grow. I think we actually just crossed 600 or 700 subscriptions on Rumble. So 601 followers on Rumble. So that's awesome. We definitely are growing over there, and it's nice to see. All right, so a woman gets arrested in Dubai. A Western woman, an American woman, locked up in Dubai, Houston woman. She is now facing jail, some serious jail time for screaming in public. Police are believed to have confiscated her passport, meaning she cannot leave the country. She may face serious jail time after being charged with the crime of screaming in public. Incident is said to have occurred during a dispute between the 29-year-old and a male employee at a car firm. Now, I've got a news report from this. Let's take a look and a listen. Here she is right here. She was jailed in Dubai for screaming in public. Here's a photograph of her that starts off right there. You can see where her hands are at right here. She says she's out here in Dubai. That's how she's dressed. She's got the green hair, as you can see. She's jailed in Dubai for screaming in public. Let's watch this and then we can react.
The trip turned terrifying for Tiara Young Allen when her mom says she was a passenger in a friend's rental car and they got into an accident there in Dubai. Tina Baxter says when her daughter went to the company to retrieve her ID, credit card, and other items left in the rental, Baxter says it did not go well.
She found out that she could only receive those items if she paid an undisclosed amount of money. She dealt with a very aggressive individual, a young man there who was screaming at her.
Baxter says her 29-year-old daughter ultimately yelled back at the rental car agent, she says resulting in her being charged for screaming there in Dubai.
And so she is in jail for one reason and one reason alone. She raised her voice. In that country, a female is not even allowed to raise her voice. If she raises her voice, it's punishable by jail time.
It's been very emotional. There are some days I stay up all night crying.
They have a
Her that right there. She's a female truck driver, and she was in Dubai. And these are the kind of photographs that she posts on her socials.
strict law system that is really based on theocracy.
This website warns, quote, laws and customs are very different, so be aware of your actions to ensure they don't offend while in United Arab Emirates. Now, after Baxter says her daughter was charged with screaming in Dubai, her passport has been taken, and the American social media influencer who works as a truck driver can't leave the UAE, according to her mom. And her mom says she's been placed under a travel ban pending the outcome of the investigation.
It's very frightening. The longer she's been there, the more reality has started to kick in.
In our opinion, she did not commit a crime. Don't punish women for doing the same thing a man can do in Dubai. It's not fair and it's not right.
Okay, well. Well, 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 So things are gonna get a little bit rough in here. She's just a girl in the world. Yes, she is, Chris. She's a girl in jail in the world. Will Run Riot says maybe she'll come back with a little bit of perspective. I highly doubt that. Did Brittany Griner come back with a little perspective? Honestly, I'm curious because we haven't heard as much about Brittany Griner. Remember when she was detained in Russia, right? But before she was detained in Russia, she was always complaining about how terrible things were in the West. You know, modern feminists in the West are always talking about the patriarchy and breaking through the glass ceiling and talking about the oppressive laws. Get your Republican laws off of my body. And then, well. Here we have a case study of a woman named Tiara. She goes to Dubai. She dresses like a 304. She acts like a crazy person, screaming in public, and they don't put up with it. It's out in the open. They say exactly what their laws are. Women are not allowed to be screaming in public. Now, should that be a law or shouldn't be a law? There's probably a good argument that it should be a law. But just because there is a good argument that there should be a law doesn't mean that there ought to be a law. Am I right, my libertarian friends? Now, my conservative friends and the radical traditionalists who are watching us right now are saying, no, God, Austin, you libertarian asshole. It should absolutely be a crime. Lock her up and throw away the key. But there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this story. And one of these lessons is that maybe you ought to learn to have a little bit of respect in public, okay? Right, ladies? It's a good idea for men. It's a good idea for women. Well, one of the reasons why men try to avoid confrontations in public like these, it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It absolutely does happen, right? And sometimes it even comes to blows. But one of the reasons why it doesn't happen as often as it could happen is because men have the threat of physical violence hanging over our heads. This is an example of a woman who has never had to worry that she might get her ass kicked if she gets in somebody's face. Here she is. Let's take a look here. There she is, jailed in Dubai for screaming in public. Now, when you go to Dubai, they have much different clothing standards there. They have different standards on respect and how women should behave. Now, that is their place in the world. I may not agree with their laws and their customs, but their laws and their customs are what they are. And I'm not even saying necessarily that when you go to other people's countries that you necessarily have to obey all of their tyrannical authoritarian laws. But that doesn't mean, just because I think that, for example, when was it Dubai hosted the World Cup, they at the last minute canceled everybody from being able to drink alcohol other than the most elite, like the wealthiest people were only ones. And then people got mad. Muslims were mad because people were sneaking alcohol into the stadium and drinking in it. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. But again, if you get caught, you do have to face the repercussions of that, right? You do have to face the consequences of that. And listen, there is a part of me that absolutely on a visceral level that says, you know what? Leave her there. We don't want her back here in the United States. We got enough loud, screaming women in this country who are problem children in this country, just that we don't need one more. So I just say there is that part of you, right? But then there is that part, just like the part of you that saw when Brittany Griner was going down, right? When she was in that Russian jail cell. Wasn't there some part of you, like some mean part of you that was like, you know what? Let's just leave Brittany Griner over there. You know what? Because she hates America, right? These people, they despise our country. They talk crap about it all the time. And here's the thing. There's always this joke where it's like, well, if you don't like America, you can get out. Why don't you leave and go live in a country like that, go live in a country where, they don't have American values. And what's funny is then here's this situation where you get this influencer truck driver. Here she is again, jailed in Dubai for screaming in public. And she's out there and it actually happens. And part of you wants to say, you know what? Just leave her there. Am I wrong? I mean, somebody just tell me if I'm wrong. Does some part of that you have that feeling? Scott Beezer says you sound conflicted. I am conflicted. I'm definitely conflicted. Illegal for women to yell ? Based, says the onion dip. Very funny. Yes, but no. Yes, but no.
No, God, please, no.
F around and find out, says Katie556. Exactly. Or Camellia says, "Do you need to explain 304 to your audience?" I believe it's what's another word for a garden tool, if I understand it correctly. But at least I never did the Urban Dictionary. I just assumed. So somebody explain to me if I'm wrong about that one. 304, I think, is what is a 304. I guess I'm going to find out right now. 304. Oh, here we go. A euphemism. Yeah, a euphemism for a promiscuous female. The term derives from when a 304 is typed into a calculator and then turned upside down. A 304 is a rather skanky and promiscuous girl, also commonly known as a garden tool. So there you go. This just hits all the buttons. It hits all the good spots, doesn't it? Right? You hate America? Leave. Go to Dubai. See how well you do. What's funny too is that you'll see a lot of these women will go to these countries like the United Arab Emirates, and they'll actually behave themselves and why do they behave themselves? Why do they dress conservatively in public? Well, they do that because they know that there are actual consequences for their behavior. Whereas here in the West, there are no consequences for your behavior, and there are not even social consequences for your behavior. And that's why I am actually a believer in the concept of shaming. And this was a huge debate in the libertarian community maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, when a girl by the name of Kathy Reisenwitz wrote this article saying that slut shaming, quote unquote, is force, or the same as aggression, right? It violates the non-aggression principle, if you will. You can't Shaming someone is a form of force, same as like striking someone, attacking them violently, right? It was the stupidest thing ever, right? She got rightly pilloried for it, and I was, certainly one of the people who jumped onto that train. But if you're not going to have a law against it, if you're not going to do what Dubai does and actually jail someone for acting a fool in public, acting like a 304 in public and screaming in public, if you're not going to jail people for it, which we shouldn't do, right, in the West, then there do have to be social consequences for poor behavior in public. Am I wrong? Am I right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Send me a text. Shaming is a tool for parents and society, says Elizabeth Press. Glad to have you here. Chris Morrill, you can say it. Yes, no, I just actually really like the term 304. And also, it can't be used against me in the future with a soundbite, although deep fakes these days can make you say anything. Quantum Kitty says, she is a moron. You have to respect the mores of the country you are in. Man, I haven't heard of mores in a long time, since like high school psychology. Go talk about like 300 IQ over there. Pilloried is a great word. Camellia, thank you very much. I get $5 for that one. Katie556 says, yeah, scream racism and they get out of trouble. Yes, good point there. And what else are people saying about this one over on Rumble? Cha-cha-cha. Ganon Zero says, if we had a testosterone requirement for voting, the Democrats would never win another election again. Very true. Let's watch this news report again, because I just want you to see this. I want to get to that part where that lawyer is talking about the theocracy here. Let's skip back over there. Take a look at it. If you're just tuning in the Wake Up America show, good morning. Nice to see you here. I see we have 80 people watching us over on Rumble now. We're just creeping up. 80, 43 over on YouTube, 80, 90, 100, 123 people watching us. This is right now the most amount of people that have watched this show live. Thank you. Glad to have you here. We're talking about this story. We're going to get, if you tuned in because you want to talk about misgendering being a crime, we're going to get to that in about 12 minutes. My buddy Jon Miltimore is going to join us here. Right now, I'm talking about this story about a woman who is getting the Brittany Griner treatment, and she got jailed in Dubai. But I'll let the news report explain it. And then I want to talk about what the lawyer says at the end.
The trip turned terrifying for Tierra Young Allen when her mom says she was a passenger in a friend's rental car and they got into an accident there in Dubai. Tina Baxter says when her daughter went to the company to retrieve her ID, credit card, and other items left in the rental, Baxter says it did not go well.
She found out that she could only receive those items if she paid an undisclosed amount of money.
Now, why did they say undisclosed amount of money? Probably the lawyer told them to say that because they're terrified that they're gonna, if she does want to get her stuff back and she says how much it was, they're gonna increase the amount of it. So they're being very careful here.
She dealt with a very aggressive individual, a young man there who was screaming at her.
Baxter says her 29-year-old daughter ultimately yelled back at the rental car agent, she says, resulting in her being charged for screaming there in Dubai.
And so she is in jail for one reason and one reason alone. She raised her voice. In that country, a female is not even allowed to raise her voice. If she raises her voice, it's punishable by jail time.
It's been very emotional. There's
Oh, come on. Doesn't like the mean part of you, doesn't the evil part of you want to be like, good, bring it here to the United States?
some days I stay up all night crying.
They have a strict law system that is really based on theocracy.
This
Yes, it is.
website warns, quote, laws and customs are very different, so be aware of your actions to ensure they don't offend
There
while
it is.
in United
Do you think that she read those laws and customs before she decided to go over to Dubai and act a fool and start screaming at some guy in public? You fool, you idiot.
Arab Emirates. Now, after Baxter says her daughter was charged with screaming in Dubai, her passport has been taken.
I got to see, this is why I watch my language and I say things like 304 instead of other words, because Ashley A., who's joining us right now. Good morning, Ashley. She says, our son Billy is excited to watch the show with us because you said hi to him before. Also, Billy is a brand new big brother and is very proud of his baby sister. Hey, congratulations. Billy, we're glad to have you here. So see, this is why I watch what I say here on the show, but this is actually a good lesson for your kids. Well, Ashley, if you're just tuning in, I'm talking about this story about a woman who went to another country and who did not obey the laws of that country, and she acted like a fool, and now she's in jail.
And the American social media influencer who works as a truck driver can't leave the UAE, according to her mom. And her mom says she's been placed under a travel ban pending the outcome of the investigation.
It's very frightening. The longer she's been there, the more reality has started to kick in.
There's the word right there. The longer that she's been there, the more reality is starting to kick in. Isn't that really what's missing from a lot of these Westerners that talk about how terrible life is in the United States, how awful things are in the West? Oh, the decline of the West is, if anything, it is the behavior of these people who never get a reckoning in their life. How many people do you think in the United States need this kind of a reckoning? I mean, a lot. A lot, right? Talion says, yes, part of me is snickering. Yes, absolutely. Hey, Billy, your mom should explain that big people do stuff kids can't. I don't know what Elizabeth's trying to say there. I don't think she was acting, says Robbie Thurman. Very true. Again, if you're just tuning in the Wake Up America show, good morning. Glad to have you here. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel. For all of our new parents out there, by the way, for those of you who are tuning in and have new little babies in your life, or maybe you had a friend who had a baby, don't forget to check out apforlibertyshop.com. We got a new Tiny Patriots collection over there. So if you type in Tiny Patriots, you can see we've got baby Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington is the commander in cute. It's a really cute little collection for toddlers and infants and all kinds of fun baby stuff. So check that out over at apforlibertyshop.com. Joni Rankin asks the real question. She says, how do they measure that? A normal voice level is between 60 to 70 decibels. A raised voice between 65 to 75. Very loud voice, 75 to 85. Well, Joni, that's the thing, is that they don't really need to kind of measure that kind of a thing. If you're in Dubai, if you're in an Islamic country like that, and you yell at a man in public, they're going to send you to jail. I don't care, what you do. You just have to act right. Ashley says, oh, he knows what adult words and kids words are. That's good to know that. Tolly says the Karen population would decrease significantly, so a ban here wouldn't be all that bad. I know, hilarious. We're all authoritarians this morning on the Wake Up America show. We're glad to have you here. Katie556 says in Japan, instead of goth, they had people wear the traditional kimonos, right? Japan is very modest, but nobody seems to do anything if you break the rules. They just silently follow traditions. Very true. Scott Beezer says that she's a fool, but the world is full of fools, and there aren't nearly enough jails to hold them all. Good point. Yeah, here in the United States, you just scream racism and then they get out of trouble. Glad to have you all here on the show. Check out our Tiny Patriots collection over at apforlibertyshop.com. Katie556 says it's awesome over there in Japan. Yeah, on trains, people are quiet, no problem yelling into their phones. That's one nice thing about Japan, is that people are very respectful. They're quiet on trains. There's a lot of things that I wish I could bring back from Japan to the United States. One of them is acting properly in public. The other thing that I wish I could bring over here from Japan is their 7-Elevens, because for God's sake, if you have not eaten at a 7-Eleven in Japan, you haven't eaten. It's incredible. Trebs Now Sal 1961 on Rumble dropped us a nice comment. He says, should it be a crime? Only if you think there are more than male and female. Biden wants, he's talking about misgendering, which we're going to get to in about 5 minutes. Biden wants laws for everyone but him and his family. Amen. Biden will not live at the White House in 2024. Amen. President Trump will have him arrested. Amen. F. Joe Biden and the fake butt news. Amen, brother. We love to hear it.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Excuse me. Donald Trump is coming back, baby.
From now on, it's going to be America first, okay? America first.
That's right. We've got a lot of great show left to go. Should misgendering be a crime? We're going to talk about that when we get back with Jon Miltimore, the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. You don't want to miss a minute. I'll be right back, but I'll be monitoring the chat, so be good. And if any of you act a fool, go to jail. Be right back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight. Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your founding flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We got my buddy, Jon Miltimore, joining us. Sorry, we got a little bit of fuzziness there on the Wake Up America show. Good morning, Jon. How you doing, brother? Glad to have you here. I'd be a little happier if my technology problems weren't so numerous this morning, but thanks for joining us on the Wake Up America show. It certainly is. So, Jon, you saw this poll. 44% of millennials who were polled said that they would be comfortable with making misgendering someone a crime. What's your reaction?
Here of the doubt, and say, in a broader sense, society's been kind of had some confusion on this issue for a long time. To me, it's sort of like as a society, we look at vices and crimes as the same thing, and we've been doing it for a long time. Lysander Spooner wrote a great essay about this in the 19th century, and he says vices are not crimes, but we often treat vices as crimes. And that's not just millennials. That's, I don't care if you're boomers or Gen X or Gen Z. There's this idea that because somebody's doing something that we think is bad, we should criminalize it. And we've been doing that for a long time. And we're seeing, now a great example of how crazy that can get when you're going to, say somebody belongs in jail, which is what we're talking about here. They belong in jail if they don't use the preferred pronouns of someone.
Well, it's just funny because I was just talking about this story, John, where this woman in Dubai got locked up because she was screaming in public. And people complain about, and her lawyers complaining, and they're all upset. I mean, people complain about the West, John, but there's a lot of people who seem to want to make the West more like the East, specifically in ways like this.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff recently. I believe it was Iran where they were putting out the moral police again, and women who weren't in their hijabs were going to be, arrested. And this is along those lines, right? Like this is something very similar. Again, we have certain protections here in the West, at least in the United States. Like this would never pass the constitutional muster, but that's not really the question here. The question is, why are we going to, criminalize, the speech or behavior of somebody who's just peacefully going about their business? And even, we talked. This was a Newsweek poll, but I saw Reason. Elizabeth Nolan Brown wrote the article there, and she had, I think it was a great job. But she also points out you're a jerk for misgendering someone, and I don't know if I agree with that even. I don't think.
I definitely don't
Yeah.
agree with that.
I've been thinking about this for years. This was before I was at FE. I watched a bunch of libertarians were arguing about this on Facebook in a thread, and they were bright people. These were PhDs, these were economists, and they were saying, no, you're actually the aggressor. If you're trying to force someone to adopt language, you're the aggressor here. And I think there's a line where we let people live their life, but you don't get to choose the words for other people. And I think this is one of those cases where they want to make me use certain words. And I'm a polite person. I don't want to insult anyone. That's not my goal. But I don't have to adopt a mindset that you choose because you feel your identity is something other than it is.
No, I agree with you. And my position on this is a little bit more nuanced. If it's somebody like Blair White or Sarah Higdon or somebody who believes in freedom and doesn't want to take my rights away, then that is a person who I will respect their pronouns, refer to them how they want to. It's not to say that I won't make a mistake, right? Sometimes you just because somebody's like, it's ma'am, you can be like, you might say sir, right, instead of ma'am or something like that. And they should understand that. But I kind of I kind of see this as a sort of as a war in a way, John. I'll be open and say that I see that this attack on our fundamental liberties is no different than an armed conflict in a way, because information warfare is part of an armed conflict. And in pushing to criminalize speech and attacking my liberties, they are using force. These are people who are advocating for the use of force. So you say you don't want to be a jerk, and I say I do want to be a jerk because I think nice guys aren't going to get anything done in the war for our liberties. Samuel Adams, if you read about him, he was notably the biggest asshole in Boston at the time, and I think it's probably going to take a bit of assholeness for us to be able to protect our rights. That was something I think it definitely hurt me in my presidential campaign in 2016, because I do think I'm going to use a word here, a not nice word, and I hope that those who have kids who are watching right now, they don't get upset with me and then leave. But I think a lot of libertarians are pussies, John. I think that they don't have the will to fight, they don't have the knowledge to fight, and I think that they think that if they can kind their way or nice their way into one, winning elections, or two, winning the fight for our liberties. And you're just not going to nice your way to freedom, in my opinion. So therefore, and this is a long meandering way for me to say this, therefore, I will intentionally misgender a leftist. I will intentionally do that because, like Saul Alinsky wrote in his Rules for Radicals, ridicule is a powerful weapon. And it's not something that I think that we should set down. And using comedy, using satire, using ridicule, I think that those are tools that we shouldn't leave out of our toolkit. I think that playing nice is what's got us into this position. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think different forms call for different things, right? Like if you're a comedian, it's going to be different, than if you're a politician. I do think civility is important. And that's something, like sometimes I'm, hey, on Twitter, sometimes I poke at things too. And sometimes, I can be a little droll, we'll say. But I don't want to lose civility. I think it's dangerous to lose that. And I don't think of myself as a shrinking violet. I'm not, because I think you're right about, like some libertarians or some people. I think there's really just a lack of courage broadly in America today, and it troubles me. That said, I think there's dangers of going. What I'll say is it's sort of the full Trump route. Now, all the Trump people I know that are still just Trump supporters, and I voted for the guy. I'm not going to, I'm not going to say I was never, a Trump supporter. But they all say, well, he's a fighter, right? He's a fighter. Yes. And I agree that we need people that are going to fight. We need people that are going to stand up for principles. But there's a line you cross when, somebody who's just a fighter, they're doing more damage than good. And they're causing problems. And ultimately, being a fighter, you need fighters that are going to stand for principles. But you can do great damage to a cause too when you become kind of like a bomb thrower. I'm using that in a metaphorical
but I mean,
sense, obviously.
But I think about it. Who was the last nice president that we had?
Yeah,
great question. Great question, isn't it?
I think most presidents get there because they are tough, right? But I think of George W. Bush as kind of a sweet guy. He did a lot of bumbling things, a lot of things that were really bad, but he strikes me as a nice guy. Obama seemed pretty nice, pretty civil most of the time, right? You can say there's a lot of things to complain about both those men, but I think they actually embodied the presidency and brought something to it. And those things actually matter to me. Like, I know some people don't think those. To me, a president needs to have a certain amount of decorum. And because it's like an organization. You build an organization on top, and if you build the person on top, all of that kind of seeps down a little bit. And then that culture, to some extent, I think starts up there. And as a country, we've thrown that out. We really have. So I do think there is a place for civility, but even civility, like when you're talking about misgendering and things, I don't know how much use it's going to be in something like this. I do think there's a fundamental, gap between the left and the right on something like this. And I think there's dangers. If you look there, I made a point yesterday, I think it was on Twitter. To me, civilization breaks down when you can't even have male and female. There's a video of somebody berating someone because they were misgendered when the credit card they're using was a male name and the person looked like a female, and there was a huge blow up. But I think civil society needs male and female.
It's ma'am. It's ma'am.
You saw the video I'm talking about.
Yeah. If you are just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on this morning. Have you ever heard of that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, John?
I have not.
Okay, so this is a book that helps men specifically to get what they want, right? To whether it's love, sex, or life, or whatever. This is a book that it talks about, people who are trying too hard to be people pleasers, right, and neglect their own needs, right? And this book talks about men becoming unhappy and resentful, and then they end up lashing out even at people that they love. So the psychotherapist talks about this concept where these are men who are victims of nice guy syndrome, right? Where they're constantly seeking approval, and trying to find happiness in their life by being nice, and you allow yourself to get run over. And so, when I hear, Elizabeth, Nolan over at Reason Magazine, who I like and respect for her views on, criminal justice reform and other things.
Same.
When I hear her saying that, like, you're an asshole if you misgender someone, she seems to imply that that's a bad thing. But my argument here, my contention is that we are going to get walked all over, John, if we don't take a more aggressive stance in defending our liberties against things like this, because our society has become so hyper feminized that just a simple, like, we're criminalizing self-defense. I mean, you saw what happened to that Daniel Penny character in New York for choking and accidentally killing Jordan Neely in New York for defending other people's lives. I mean, this is a sort of a big on the meta side of things, John. Like, we cannot allow ourselves to be walked all over. I think that's why Trump got elected in 2016, but then the be nice suburban white ladies came out in droves in 2020 and took it over, because white men who voted for Trump in 2016 didn't show up in 2020.
Yeah, I think broadly there you make a lot of good points. I will say some of those, suburban white women I was talking to over the weekend, you wouldn't want to argue with them. They're pissed off about this stuff too. They're very outspoken. And I do, but when I say I agree with you broadly, I do. I think when you can't defend something as simple as male and female, like to me that's a problem. And say, you know what? I think men are men and women are women. I think that men, should play men's sports and women should play women's sports. People are afraid to do that, and I do think we need to stand up and not roll over in front of those things. I think broadly the West has kind of forgotten its identity. I like that you lean into the cowboy part of individualism, right? Like I'm a fan of Westerns, right? And there was something about that ethos, right? I think these values, go beyond just the non-aggression principle and stuff. There's values we find in the American Western, like you stand up to bullies, you don't get pushed around, and I take that stuff seriously. And I'm a civil person, but I'm not a shrinking violet. I stuck up for you on Twitter the other day when Kevin Cruz was ripping you, right?
That was awesome. That was awesome. That was some leftist who was like, they were mad at my coffee company, like a commercial, and like literally all it was just talking about being patriotic and like, don't spend your money on woke coffee. And they were apoplectic. And then this professor attacks me, and honestly, he had blocked me before I could see what he had said. He's like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And then I guess, did you know him, or did you just like quickly Google him and find out that he was a plagiarist?
No, I've known about him for years. Like he was one that Reason published some pieces on him. I think it's Phil Magnus. Cruz, is one of these guys. He's a very aggressive Twitter personality and was accused of plagiarism. And I think if you look at it, he plagiarized. Princeton went soft on him, but I think it was a big embarrassment for him. And so I thought, that'll clap him back at him, and that kind of was fun.
That was awesome.
Context.
I was shocked because I had no idea who this guy was, and I mean, it's funny. I only paid like maybe $100 to advertise the coffee commercial that I made. The commercial itself, like, literally just says, "Are you tired of woke coffee companies spending your money on causes that go against your values? Buy American, pro America, pro liberty, founding fathers coffee from me, right?" And just saying that, don't spend your money on woke corporations that hate you, that was enough to get the left, I mean, triggered as all hell. I mean, it wasn't even, here's the thing, I didn't misgender anybody. I didn't make fun of anybody. I didn't attack anyone personally, any one person or individual. All I said was, don't buy coffee from corporations that hate you. And it's like the left is like, no, you must buy coffee from corporations that hate you and all this stuff. And it's like just that amount of pushback was enough. But I mean, imagine if we got even a little bit more aggressive, John, how much more like we could drive them absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's great.
It's a
great
sensitive issue for them right now, right? Like let's not forget, like the whole Bud Light thing. They're watching Bud Light implode. They one of the things they see is like, well, they have corporations kind of under control right now, and they don't like the idea of consumers taking their business elsewhere and losing sort of the power of that movement they have and all the ESG power they have right now. So you can see why they're a little bit nervous about entrepreneurs going and selling their own coffee.
Yeah, no, for sure, because they of course absolutely do rely on the money that people spend on these corporations. Because think about all the leftist think tanks and all of the ESG institutions that they've set up in order to siphon away all of those funds. Because Starbucks takes those and puts that money into 501c3s and things like that they can get their tax write-off for every year. And so a lot of people, if you're buying coffee from people that hate you, you're literally funding your opposition.
Yeah, and I think they sense on that issue the worm is turning a little bit. Like even Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, who is one of the leading proponents of this, he's been singing a little bit for different tune lately. If you go and look at what he's saying in interviews, and he's actually talking very favorably about Bitcoin, which I find interesting and a little alarming. But yeah, I think this is a sensitive point for them right now, which is probably why you got so much attention, and hopefully it helped your sales out too a little bit on Twitter.
It for sure did, and now is a good time for me to just remind people that you can get our delicious founding flavors, pro America, certified woke free coffee at ap4libertyshop.com. All right, so we've talked about the millennials. 44% of them saying that they think misgendering should be a crime. Do you think that that's all tied into this, like the sensitivity police, right? That they just that there's a that like I bet you if you did a poll, John, and you asked millennials this question, like, should racism be illegal? Probably a majority of them, maybe even 90% of them, John, might say yes.
Yeah, no, I think so. There's probably a point you go back far enough where you would have had, Christians say, was you using the Lord's name in vain? Should that be illegal? There would have been people, a high percentage that would have said yes for that. Like we should do something to them. So I think, we got to realize this is morality, and they're trying to enforce it. And they're trying to enforce it any way they can. We saw like these threats of criminal, prosecution, obviously the most serious, but we saw this with Twitter a couple of years ago before Elon Musk bought it. Like misgendering was going to be treated the utmost. You'd lose your account over it. And they're trying to enforce this new morality on people, and they don't really care too much. We're seeing how they enforce it. Now, I will say most other generations say no, we shouldn't criminalize it. That was this segment of millennials. But it's dangerous, and I'll go back. Like once you start to look at vices and crimes as the same things, it's the same thing. You're on dangerous territory. We need to realize that vices are not crimes.
Amen. Jon Miltimore, managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today before we let you go?
No, check out our content at fee.org, and my Substack is The Take. I publish there every day as well.
It is Jon Miltimore. Thank you very much for your time. Read fee.org as well, like I do every single day. John, have a great day.
Hey, thanks, AP. You have a good one.
Thanks very much. What do you think of Jon Miltimore? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. All right. So just to put a cap on that conversation, I like to recap and explain sort of my thought processes so that you understand, really where I'm coming from. I don't really have nearly any hate in my heart for anyone. I do hate those who want to deprive me of my individual rights. I do hate those who wish to destroy the American Republic by undermining our proper institutions, who want to undermine checks and balances, who despise the U.S. Constitution, and who despise what it truly means to be an American. For those people, I do have hate in my heart, and I do think that hate is a worthwhile energy that can animate you to fight not only for your liberty, but for your very life itself and to protect your loved ones. I think that part of the wussification of America has been an attempt to try and drive hate out from our hearts. And when I say our hearts, I mean ours, not entirely. Because if you understand the people in the who live in the homes that say that have signs on the outside that say things like "hate has no home here," that's not true. Their homes, there absolutely is hatred in their homes. What they're saying is that there is hatred in your home, right? They absolutely hate you. I think about Black Lives Matter for example. What are they saying there? What they're saying, what Black Lives Matter is saying, with just their phrase right there, they're saying is that you think Black lives don't matter. That's an accusation, right? They're accusing you of believing something. Why would they do something like that? It's because they hate you. They despise you. And I know that the Bible says in Jesus, God bless him, Jesus, the Son of God, he would say, turn the other cheek. He would say that you should not return fire, that you should, what you do to among the least of you, you do to me. But not being a Christian, being an agnostic, I do think that you should return fire. I do believe in some of the more Old Testament fighting fire with fire, eye for an eye in some ways, because you say eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Well, not if you get them first, right? Not if you get them first. And that's another reason why I've always had problems with the libertarian version of the non-aggression principle. Although I do consider myself to be a philosophical libertarian, I do think that it becomes cover for allowing evil to reign. When you allow evil to come in and amongst your ranks and live among you, then they will have you on your back foot before you can actually defend yourselves. I wonder what you think about this one. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Let us know what your thinking is on this topic. We're gonna have another guest here in just a couple of minutes. Who we got? Who's on the kitty? Let's talk to my producer. Oh, I don't have a producer. JD Tuccille. So unfinished lowers. So these are those little plastic guns that you can actually make on your own. We're going to talk about that. This might be the Trumpiest segment of all the segments, says Chris. We didn't even say Trump. You're the one who brought up Trump. JD Tuccille to talk about a big loss for Biden's crusade against ghost guns. He's also got a new piece out. Looks like it dropped just this morning. Biden's latest student loan scheme has a bigger price tag than originally projected. We'll talk to JD Tuccille when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We love seeing a nice big audience here today. Thanks for joining us. The price of admission to the Wake Up America show, it's free. Well, all you got to do is click that like button before you file in and sit down and join us. And if you enjoy the content, make sure you click subscribe as well. We're grateful. We appreciate all the support out there for the Wake Up America show, coming up on our 1-year anniversary of this independent, libertarian, live stream morning talk show. They said it couldn't be done, but guess what? Here we are, 1 year in, and we're not only are we surviving, but we're thriving. Thanks to the support of listeners like you, our monthly sponsors have helped to continue to help us grow, and we've also been adding advertisers, and the launch of my new coffee brand last week at apforlibertyshop.com was off like a rocket. So thank you for all your financial support and, of course, your moral support as well. I know that your morality does lead you towards liberty, which is why I like to bring on my next guest, JD Tuccille. He's a writer at Reason Magazine, and he's joining us live on the phone right now. Good morning, JD. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you.
Glad to have you here. Love reading your pieces, JD. I get your weekly, is it a weekly newsletter, The Rattler?
3 times a week.
3 times a week, yes. So I get that from Reason.com. I signed up for your newsletter. That way I can keep up to date with your excellent writing. It looks like you got a new piece this morning, which I will ask you about in a minute. But I was really interested to see what you had written a couple of days ago about a big loss for Biden's crusade against ghost guns. Your subtitle here, a federal judge says that the ATF can't arbitrarily classify inert objects as gun parts. All right, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Well, here's the thing. Firearms, we know, are heavily regulated in the U.S., but in order to regulate something, you got to define what it is. And what it is in terms of what the regulations apply to is the receiver, especially on rifles. And if you're thinking about an AR-15, which is which is the civilian version of the M16 or the M4, that lower part where the trigger sits is the lower receiver. And that's where kind of the mechanism that activates a firearm, most of it anyway, is. And that's what is specifically regulated by U.S. law. And this is why you can buy things like parts kits that have everything for you to put a gun together except for that lower receiver, because the rest of it is not regulated by law. And then you can either separately purchase, as if it were a firearm, a lower receiver, or make one yourself. And that has been a booming industry and a booming hobby now for a good number of years. People use workshop tools. They use 3D printers to make lower receivers. They make, or they use CNC machines. And I'm using the AR-15 because that's the most popular firearm, but people also make pistols, other kinds of rifles, their own designs, what have you. The thing is, as with all things gun involved, they're popular among gun enthusiasts, and they're very unpopular, the idea that you can make your own firearm, among gun control advocates. And the Biden administration, when it came in, has been promising up and down that it was going to stomp out the dread scourge of what it calls ghost guns, which are these DIY guns. And they call them ghost guns because they don't have serial numbers on them, and they don't have serial numbers because they didn't come out of a factory. They came out of your garage. So the Biden administration told the ATF, redefine what a receiver is so that it's harder for people to make their own lower receivers that are regulated part of the gun. And the ATF went and defined it, changed the definition, or at least proposed to change the definition to cover unfinished receivers. There's things that look like receivers to a certain extent, but really require drilling and milling and work on the part of the hobbyist before the parts can be installed that would make it a functioning part of a firearm. And the ATF said, we're going to make it really hard for anyone to use these unfinished receivers to sell these without treating them as firearms, with all the rules that apply. And they got sued for that because, and the federal judge, this is what this is all about. Federal judges in Texas agreed. Just because you change the definition of a word doesn't mean that the word's actual meaning changed. Law didn't let the ATF change the definition of lower receiver to mean something that really is a paperweight. And that's what it came down to. And this judge was not amused by the ATF's efforts.
I mean, it's kind of fascinating how arbitrary the definition of a gun is in general, JD, because in order for the ATF or the government to be able to regulate firearms, they had to get very, very specific about what constitutes a firearm. And that's why so many of these, challenges to the law by creating workarounds like the California compliant AR-15 or the New York compliant AR-15, why all these things exist. The reason that the 80% lower exists is because of the way that the ATF has so arbitrarily and narrowly defined what is considered to be a gun. So, I mean, it's if you buy an AR-15 lower, you're essentially getting a little hunk of metal that doesn't even have a trigger in it, and it's considered to be a gun, even though it doesn't fire anything. I mean, that alone, once you learn that fact, like what the ATF considers to be a gun, to me, I feel like gun control arguments fall apart. If more people just knew what the hell a lower was, they would be like, wait, that's a gun? I mean, it literally can't shoot anything, but that's a gun. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It absolutely is ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is, somewhere between being raw ore in the ground to being a finished product that you can use, things become that finished product, right? In the case of a firearm, there's a firearm somewhere along the way, but it has to be able to function. And as it is, the ATF is allowed to regulate firearms. And okay, That means because firearms have become increasingly modular, it's not like a musket, 300 years ago. It's something that could be put together from component parts, but you can't just regulate something that might be, say, the barrel of a gun, because then the entire plumbing section at your hardware store becomes subject to firearms regulation. That doesn't work because those pipes really could be used as barrels of firearms if you put them together the right way, right? So you have to define what a firearm is, and what the ATF tried to move that goalpost and say, nah, something that's really more of a hunk of metal is it could conceivably be, if you squint right, a working component of a firearm. And the judge said, no, that's really not the way it works. If you actually can't put parts of it without drilling into it and milling into it, it is definitely not a receiver. That's not what the word receiver means. And there's just always going to be a problem with regulation. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with the public moving up to the edge of what the law allows, because if you're up to the edge of what the law allows, it means you're doing what you're legally allowed to do. And the ATF can't move by itself what the law allows. It needs Congress to do that. And Congress won't cooperate. And administrative agencies, while they have a lot of leeway for defining the laws that they administer, can't make them up out of whole cloth and start redefining words in the dictionary just because that's what the president wants. And that's what this judge in Texas said.
Amen. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, glad to have you here. Make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content that you're seeing right now. We're glad to have a nice big audience over here with us today. We're on the front page of Rumble, which I imagine is how many of you found us this morning. So if you like that content, make sure that you're clicking subscribe to the channel. The one that you're watching right now, sometimes people click on it, they're like, I have no idea who this is. I just wanted to hear them talk about the topics. So I am AP for Liberty here on Rumble. If you're trying to find us a little bit later, when you're like, oh, what was that great show I was watching with that gentleman who was talking about firearms and they sounded very intelligent, and we want to watch that in the mornings, make sure it's AP for Liberty. You type in there and just go ahead and click that subscribe button right now so you don't have to find us later. JD, you wrote another piece over at reason.com. That was a great piece. Biden's latest student loan scheme has a bigger price tag than originally projected. Well, I say double it and give it to the next guy. But your subtitle here is the administration's SAVE plan for student loan forgiveness is estimated to cost $475 billion. Now, JD, I thought the Supreme Court already told Joe Biden he can't forgive student loans. What is this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if you remember a year ago, all the talk was about how Joe Biden was going to wave his magical presidential wand and make 40 million former students student loans, burdensome loan payments go away just because he was the president and was a nice guy. But no, Congress hadn't gone along with that. Congress hadn't changed the laws that said that if you borrow money, you've got to pay it back. That had not budged an inch. And the president, as it turns out, the Supreme Court was quite clear about this, cannot redefine what your obligations are. Here again, is we're running up against a problem of the executive branch saying, yeah, we know the legislative branch doesn't want to make a law that we want to exist, so we're just kind of squint real hard at existing law and make it work in our direction. No, you're not. The Supreme Court stepped in and said that and with regard to the Secretary of Education, because the Secretary of Education, of course, enacts anything involving education on behalf of the president, and said, and I love this quote from Chief Justice John Roberts, the Secretary's plan is modified, in quotes, the cited provisions only in the same sense that the French Revolution modified the status of the French nobility. It has abolished them and supplanted them with a new regime entirely. And then, and that, of course, was right before saying, no, you can't do that, slap. So Plan B was for the Biden administration to redefine what's called an income-defined repayment plan. And this is a plan that actually exists under law, and it's one of the options that people borrowing money from the federal government, because the federal government, I don't know if everyone knows this, makes most of the loans these days for college. So that is, you're not borrowing in most cases from a private lender, you're borrowing from the government. And so the government has as an option, you can choose to pay for 20 or 25 years with the amount to be set depending upon your income. And then the rest of the loan, the remainder, will be forgiven after 20, 25 years, provided you've made good faith payments throughout that time. The Biden administration said, we're going to redefine what good faith payments mean, and that's Plan B. And so they came up with this plan that it's much more modest than the original plan. It has to be. But it's probably on better legal legs because it's a plan that the executive branch really does administer and can kind of tweak the terms of to a much greater extent than waving that magic wand and making loan obligations go away. But of course, the U.S. has been awash in, the federal government's been awash in red ink for years. And so the University of Pennsylvania has what's called the Penn-Wharton budget model, and they crunched the numbers on federal spending. And they wanted to figure out if the Biden administration's numbers on Plan B, this redefined, the Biden administration's calling it SAVE, but it's a modification, the existing income-dependent repayment plan. They wanted to see if the numbers made any sense. And what they found was that, and I'll point out that the Penn-Wharton budget model had estimated that the old proposal was going to cost north of $600 billion over about 10 years. They ran the numbers, and even though this is a more modest plan, they say it's going to cost somewhere around $475 billion over 10 years, which is a lot of money. And that's money that's going to be basically paid by the taxpayers on loans that other people took out, loan obligations that other people took out. So there's a moral hazard here, not just a huge cost to it. And this more modest plan, as it turns out, is only modest-ish. It's still wildly expensive for a federal government that is absolutely broke and running at the tab year after year. And then when I say running at the tab, I mean that in the first 9 months of this fiscal year 2023 for the federal government started last October. Since last October, the federal government has borrowed $1.4 trillion. So that's since last October. That's more money than the federal government borrowed in all of the previous fiscal year. And that borrowed money is going to go on top of the $32 trillion existing federal debt. And now, of course, the Biden administration wants to spend, another $475 billion to erase these loan obligations on behalf of some students who went to college. So there's a lot going on here, and a lot of it is kind of kicking the football on repayment and debt obligations, and quite likely financial catastrophe down the road 10 or 15 years to the next generation.
No kidding. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. I'm speaking to JD Tuccille of Reason Magazine. He's got another piece. One last question I have for you here on your other piece, JD, that you wrote about asking the question of who is protected as a journalist? You say everybody suggests a court ruling. Journalism is an activity shielded by the First Amendment, not a special class or profession. Now, JD, we sort of exist in similar spaces. You write for a nonprofit, but I work, my business is, I operate on a for-profit model here at the Wake Up America show, right? So I rely on, advertising sales and things like that. But, I've been a credentialed journalist in the past, right? I worked at Fox for a little while, and then I had a radio show, which was a broadcast show that was credentialed and had, an FCC license, et cetera, et cetera. But now I'm an independent journalist, right? So what you and I are doing right now is not regulated by any entity whatsoever other than, the social platforms. Should I be considered a journalist now, or was I more of a journalist in the government's eyes when I was working for a corporation?
The quick answer is that we're all journalists when we do journalism. The longer answer is that there's kind of a class of elite journalists who act as if they're in a licensed profession, as if they have special liberties that are not available to the hoi polloi, the rest of us out there. And there are a lot of people, especially in government, who like to talk about journalistic credentials, and so is a real journalist, but you're not from a real journalistic outlet, and well, this has always been the case. But what happened is that in this case in Texas, a local blogger, basically a video blogger, was arrested by the local police because he was covering, and he's made kind of a career of covering their activities, and they don't like him. And so they busted him. In one case, they threw him out of a press conference. In another case, he sued and went to court. And again, a federal district court in Texas said, it's not being a journalist that's protected by the First Amendment. It's doing journalism that's protected by the First Amendment. And there's no doubt that this guy, Justin Polium, was doing journalism, whether or not you recognize him as a legitimate outfit. He was doing journalism, which anyone's allowed to do. And as long as they're doing that, then all of the protections that would adhere to someone working for one of the big name outlets apply to this video blogger in Texas who just happens to get under the skin of local police.
So, I mean, a lot of the stuff, kind of like the ghost guns things, is a little arbitrary, JD. Do you think, if for some reason I was ever attacked by the government, that like having a position in the past as a credentialed journalist would protect you? Or do you think that they, if you're not a part of a corporation now, then you're really not as protected? Because we saw what happened with Julian Assange.
Absolutely. I mean, Julian Assange is a case of the government wanting the title of journalist and the protections of First Amendment protections that adhere to journalists to adhere only to people they recognize as being, in quotes, legitimate journalists. So they talk about Assange as a hacker. They talk about him as engaged in espionage when he's doing nothing different than the New York Times and the Washington Post did in the case of the Pentagon Papers. Basically, just the same course of events going on in terms of receiving government secrets and publicizing. But the government doesn't want to recognize anybody who does journalism as a journalist. They want to recognize only people from big name media companies with whom they have relations. Very often, and I've written about this before, who they know personally. They want to recognize only them as being legitimate journalists and being protected by the First Amendment, and that's not the case. Anybody who does journalism, whether it's Julian Assange, right now, being extradited to the United States to face espionage charges, or Justin Pulliam in Texas thrown out of a press conference and arrested in another situation for filming the police. Anybody who does journalism is a journalist to the extent, for as long as they're doing that, and is fully protected by the First Amendment, whether the government likes it or not.
Love it. JD Tuccille. He's a writer for Reason Magazine. He does a 3-time-a-week newsletter called The Rattler, which I highly recommend that you subscribe to. I subscribe to it. I read it, every time it comes out. He's got great POVs, and we're thankful that he gets up so early out there in Arizona. Is that where you're at, JD?
I'm in Arizona, yep.
All right. We appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for getting up and joining us, being so generous with your time. And you always do such great work. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's JD Tuccille. Make sure that you like him on Twitter as well. Appreciate you all tuning into the show. If you've been enjoying the content so far, make sure that you click that like button. I've got a video of our president of the United States in what looks to be falling asleep while speaking to the Israeli. Is this the current prime minister from Israel? I'm not quite sure. All right, take a look at this. Watch this.
And we brought Israelis and Palestinians together at a political level, and Aqua and as well as Shram. Yes. And as I affirmed the Prime Minister, and we brought Israelis.
Oh my God, he looks like he is literally falling. He looks like he's sleep talking right now. So this guy is not looking too good. So Israeli President Herzog at White House, what would you do if you were a foreign president and you saw this? And you were, here's the thing, the cameras are on. This is the kind of thing when you sit down, you have this kind of public meeting, like the press is supposed to be seeing what you're doing. Look where the president of the United States is right now. Look what he's doing in public. How in the world is he going to make it to 2024? Watch this again.
And Palestinians together at a political level, and Aqua and as well as Shram. Yes. And as I affirmed the Prime Minister, and we brought Israelis and Palestinians.
Bro, that is just... Yeah. I don't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. That's just sad. That is just sad. It's kind of like, reminds me a little bit of this.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
This guy is commander-in-chief of the military. Right? What is going on? How in the world can the United States stand a leader who is in this state? I mean, this is elder abuse, right? He should not be in this position. The people who are supposed to care about him and love him, or the people who are responsible for this, there's an amendment for this somewhere in the Constitution. Is it like there's like the 25th Amendment or something like that, where like the Congress and the Speaker of the House can vote that the president is unable to perform his duties? I mean, is this him performing his duties?
And we brought Israelis and Palestinians together at a political level, and Aqua and as well as Shram. Yes. And as
this is not okay.
Affirmed the Prime Minister, and we brought in.
Yeah. Katie556 on the live stream says, remember when we were told the adults are back in the room? Yeah, I do remember that. And then we started seeing people going topless and taking their shirts off on the White House lawn and finding bags of cocaine in the White House. And then, this
America
kind of nonsense.
is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
I mean, what on God's green earth are we supposed to do? All right. Do you want something that's going to make you happy? Huh? Something to make you laugh that feels like, you know what? I got something for you that'll make you feel okay to laugh out. Here it is. Justin Trudeau speaking giving the opening remarks at the North American Indigenous Games. Here they are. Reminds me of that time I ran for president of the United States, and then they and I got booed for saying you shouldn't be able to sell heroin to 5-year-olds. This European tin beater over on Rumble says, off to the home for him. Someone said he's reading from a notebook, which he put in his lap prior to the recorded video. Not sure how true that is, but yeah, I don't know if I believe that. Quantum Kitty. Nelson65 says, AP, do you really want Harris to replace him? No, I think they'll probably get like Gavin Newsom or something like that. Gannon says, I would take incompetent over calculating every day. Very true. That's a good point. Katie556 says there are also other drugs in the White House. Very true. Very true. This is Jason Aldean's music video. If you're just tuning in, if you're watching the show later, which we do get a lot of people who don't watch the show live, they like to watch it later. The next part of this show, I'm going to play a quick little music video. It's going to get cut. They're going to copyright strike it, so they're going to take it out. If you're watching this live, you'll be able to hear it. This is Jason Aldean's new song that is driving the left insane. It's been out for a while, but the lyrics show Jason Aldean ripping into left-wing riots, soft on crime governance in cities, gun control, and other leftist degradation, according to Greg Price here, who's posted this very kindly. But I love this, and I'll share, see if I can bring the lyrics up for you here so you can see this. Take a listen to this. Where's my lyrics?
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light.
Pause. All right. So I'll just stop it because that way they hopefully won't take the stream down while we're live. Remember, if it does get taken down on Rumble or YouTube and they just shut the stream down, that go over to Rumble or go over to YouTube, whichever one is still up. He posted this song to Instagram and wrote this caption: when you grow up in a small town, it's the unspoken rule. We all have each other's backs and we look out for each other. It feels like somewhere along that way, that sense of community and respect has gotten lost. Deep down, we're all ready to get back to that. I hope my music video helps you know you're not alone in feeling that way. Go check it out. So he says, for the lyrics of his song, sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light. Let's continue here, so hopefully I don't get taken down and nailed.
Pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face.
Yeah, that's an actual video there. So pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, well, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face. Next lyric.
Stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough.
Yeah, stomp on a flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. But here's the part that's really driving the left insane. This specific.
We'll try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long.
Yes, exactly. He says, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. Cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Jason Aldean. Very good stuff. He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. Small towns are beautiful, brutal. Sounds good already, says Sarah Palacios. Chris Morrow says, I hate country music with a passion, but he ain't wrong. Amen. He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. If you enjoyed the show today, we are getting towards the very end. Make sure you click that subscribe button. As you can see it flying up there in the screen right there, but you can't click that screen because that's just a little video animation that I put up there. But you're going to have to click that subscribe button on whichever channel you're watching us on this morning. I think it's been a great show. I mean, I felt pretty good about it. How about you? If you enjoy the show, make sure that you help to support us by clicking that like button or subscribing. And don't forget to try a delicious cup of Founding Flavors coffee. My wife and I are very proud to introduce this last week our launch of our patriotic coffee brand. You can get Jeffersonian Java, Adams's Patriotic Perk, George Washington's Revolutionary Roast, and Franklin's Electric Elixir, as well as a Liberty Lullaby from Betsy Ross. So check that out if you haven't tried it yet. Make sure you get yourself a bag. And if you plan on getting more than one bag or trying more than one of our coffees, there's a bundles page at ap4libertyshop.com. So check out the bundles page, because once you buy like 2, 3, 4, 5 bags of coffee, then you get a discount. Now, for those of you who have already purchased it and who have tried it and who have liked it, consider making us your coffee brand for good, meaning that you sign up for a subscription, either 1, 2, or 3 month deliveries, and you get that same bundle price, that packaging price, or buy it for a friend or a family member, or somebody that you know that is a coffee lover in your life, who you know loves patriotism, loves America. Take your money that you're spending on woke coffee corporations and instead spend it on liberty. My wife and I next week are going to be in Athens, Tennessee to film our documentary, Bleed American, The Battle of Athens, which is an exciting project. Those of you who are monthly sponsors, especially our 1776 a month club, people who are donating 1776 a month, you probably signed up because I called you on the phone and asked you directly, which is what I had to do to build the business as it was. And I made some promises to those people, and those promises, of course, extend to the people who are donating $2.99 a month, and those same promises apply to you. And the promises that I made when I started the Wake Up America show almost a year ago was that I would expand this business into long-form documentaries and feature film. Now, long-form documentaries was the medium-term plan, and long-term plan is to actually make movies, of which I've written my first big feature film script that is ready for financing when I can find the right investor. But I have first on the radar is to do this documentary about the story of 1946, election fraud, political corruption, murder in a small town that eventually culminated in a violent struggle with World War II veterans contesting a stolen election and firing on a jail full of deputies, getting into a struggle, cutting the throat of a cop. I mean, it's just a brutal battle that occurred in 1946. This is going to be the 1-year anniversary on July 29th. They're having a festival in Athens, Tennessee. I've set up all of these interviews. I'm going to be taking a lot of this equipment here from the show. So I'm going to try and convince Camellia to host the show while I'm out of town, but we'll see if I can get that pulled off in time. But we are going to go to Athens, Tennessee next week. And we're going to record interviews with local townspeople, with the mayor, the city council, sheriff, and attorney general, and people like that, to just have a conversation about the Battle of Athens. And my hope is that I'll be able to get the funding that I need to actually recreate the battle. But if not, no matter what, you're still going to get a great documentary. Now, my promise was to the 1776 a month supporters, my promise was to those who signed up to be monthly sponsors of the Wake Up America show, this show you're watching now. When I made those phone calls, I said that I would be expanding into long form documentaries. And what a Peterson promises, a Peterson does. Promises kept. Now, it will take some time to produce the documentary and for you to actually see it, of course, because my hope is that I'll be able to spend some time fundraising after I produce a sizzle reel of the some of the interviews that I'll have for the documentary, something that I can use to entice an investor to come in and step in and give me the money that I need in order to be able to produce this documentary with what I think it needs to get done. But no matter what, I will be producing this documentary in some fashion. It just may not be the big budget thriller that I really want it to be. We'll see. You know, this is an experiment for me, and it's a huge risk that I'm taking. I'm having to spend a lot of my own money on this. I'm not big like Tim Pool, so I don't have millions of dollars to just throw into a project like this. I have to go out there and I have to beg and ask, which is why I, frequently will ask for things like, please buy a bag of coffee from the shop, or please become a monthly subscriber to the Wake Up America show. And if you do want to become a 1776 month subscriber because you've watched the show now for a while and you trust me and you support me and you believe in the message and the mission that I'm advocating for, then make sure you go to the website, wakeupamerica.show.com/support. And there you can sign up for the monthly support levels. It can be $5 a month. It can be, $15 a month. It can be $17.76 a month. It can be $50 a month. And that money that you spend to support this show goes into projects like these libertarian documentaries. And I've got dozens of them on my mind that I want to make and produce. And so if you would like to see this business expand, and if you want to be a part of this, many of you already are, and I appreciate that for you. But if you've been on the fence and you're kind of like, you know what, Austin, today's the day, please do pledge, become a monthly pledger. It's not just money that gets spent and then goes, to the documentaries to help spread liberty. You actually get a 20% discount at apforlibertyshop.com. So if you sign up to become a monthly sponsor and you don't have your code yet, make sure you message me, send me a text or a DM, say, hey, Austin, I'm a monthly sponsor. I need my 20% discount code. So you get a discount code. Plus you get entered into prize drawings. I gave away a freaking AK-47, a real gun, a couple of months ago to one of our monthly sponsors. So it's not just like t-shirts and mugs and bags of coffee. You could win like a real big stuff too. So it's not just money that goes wasted. It goes to support liberty, and it supports libertarian documentaries. And that money could go back to you in the form of an actual rifle. So it's good stuff, right? What do you think? Well, I have to say it's been a good show. I wish it wasn't over. I've been having way too much fun. Oop, wrong outro song. This is the one. There it is. Sarah Palacios, Rare Camellia, Cheeky Mare joining us here. Doug H says his recent invoice for the 1776 Club was $420. There it is. Robbie Thurman, Kentucky Objectivist, Chris Morrill, Elizabeth Press, Buddy Mansour, Joni Rankin, Andy Opperman, Quest Fanning, Rare Camellia, did I say that? AC, all of our friends, Tolly Owens over on Rumble, Robbie Thurman, all of our friends that was on YouTube, now our friends on Rumble. Good to see ya. Nelson65, Blutrike, Kermode Bear, Nelson65, the European Tin Beater, Hawkeye 102, Gannon 0. Like I said, everybody, Quantum Kitty. I think you and I are going to have a phone conversation here very soon this morning. Good to see you all. Thanks so much for watching us this morning. We've got a nice big audience still on Rumble. I appreciate you all. Before you leave, click that like button and subscribe. I'd love to be able to see 25. We got 23 likes on Rumble. If I can get 2 more likes on Rumble, then I would be super happy. Blue Trike says he doesn't drink coffee, but he might buy a bag to take to work, both as a conversation starter and because I really want you to make that documentary. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that. All right. As you file out the door, make sure you exit through the gift shop. Check out apforlibertyshop.com. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bullshit. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bullshit is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bullshit is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm St. George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Dee Dee made Frenchie bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Dee Dee really likes it. Dee Dee said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchie Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchie Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight. Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.